G'day, this is Captainoob, and this is a Wildey Survivor. This is a highly customizable standalone pistol type weapon with custom sounds and animations. Look at the textures, they're all shiny. The speculars are working overtime. Anyway, so the notable thing about this weapon in real life is it is actually the most powerful auto-loading handgun in the world, you see. It actually beats out the 50 cal Action Express firing Deagle by about 25%, which is massive. Basically, holy recoil Batman. We're gonna have a medical team on standby just in case Kylie breaks her wrist trying to fire this thing because, my god, maybe there's an actual technique in real life to actually fire off these hand cannons without shattering a few bones, but I don't really know about that. If you want to learn more about the weapon, there's more information, like I said before, on the page, on the mod page, so that's kind of cool. Anyways, without further ado, we'll get into the attachments. With this thing completely spec'd and with no attachments, 202 and 30 ballistic and fire damage respectively. You don't see that pop up a lot, but that's kind of a leftover from Skyrim. And the neat thing about that is it's actually not resisted by anything, so it's a guaranteed 30 damage, maybe 15 because I'm playing on very hard difficulty with the damage, I guess, penalty. Anyway, so we've got a bunch of receivers here. You can chamber this in a non-475 Wildey round here. You can chamber it into a 45, which will greatly reduce your damage, but you've got the accessibility of vanilla game bullets. You've got a Death Wish receiver here, which I'm definitely going to chuck on. Unfortunately, we're going to need a skull to put that on, which is kind of annoying. I'd rather just have that be a bone thing because I don't carry around skulls on me. Kylie's not a psycho. You can also chamber it in 44s, which will give you slightly more damage, but there's nothing here that can compare to the 475 Wildeys here. But yeah, interestingly, there's some perks here, like there's a gunslinger requirement, there's bloody mess requirement here, there's even more, but I'll chuck on a Death Wish receiver in a second, but for now we'll just move on. So for the barrels, you can have a snub nose barrel. You can extend that all the way out from 6 inches to 12 inches. That gives you superior damage and extra accuracy. Interestingly, the fire damage doesn't go away. Maybe that's supposed to represent the massive muzzle flash that you get out of this. And yeah, good luck firing this thing snub nose. That's crazy. Anyways, so yeah, we'll chuck on that one for extra range damage. And honestly, I prefer the extra ballistic damage in the bag rather than having a little bit of damage there, because damage at range is kind of good. You can chuck a scope on this because why not? That's kind of interesting. A Tactiscope, TM brand scope. Patents pending, I should say. So, yeah, I might chuck that on a different one, but for now we'll keep the the iron sights on this. You can have a laser sight here, which increases your hipfire accuracy. Kind of a weird doodad. Interesting. We'll leave that off for now. We'll maybe grab a third one and chuck that on, but for now we'll just move over to the muzzles. No shush tubes here, just a muzzle brake. It does increase your rate of fire and accuracy though, which is good. And the weight penalty, I can't really show you without it because I've got no null muzzle attachment slot, but we'll move on. So you can have a bakelite grip, wood grip, aluminium grip for, aluminum grip for +2 endurance when equipped. That's pretty neat. A badass grip for extra charisma if you want to buy and sell something, just equip this weapon. And I guess what you'll be doing in the trading thing is just pointing it at their heads, and yeah, they're going to give you a cheaper price if you're doing that. And a sexy grip, which has like a pin-up girl on it. That's kind of cool, I guess. You won't be able to see it whilst actually using it because your hand will be covering it, but yeah, there's a little bit of buffoonery going on down here, and the penetrator perk is showing up. That's clever. It's a little bit on the nose, but it's clever. And you can increase the reload speed a little bit. You can't increase this thing's magazine size beyond 8. Would be nice if you could, because I'm going to need some counterbalance here. It's a little bit front heavy, I'm thinking, but we'll move on from there. And there's a whole bunch of these Vanilla Creation Club paints on it, probably just left over from what the actual thing is, and there's a little bit of a view of the images on the grips there. But you can chuck on an engraved finish, which increases critical shot damage, so of course I'm going to put that on. I just like to point out it's actually worth 2,900 caps too. My goodness, that's a very expensive weapon. Maybe I believe those numbers in Fallout New Vegas because everything was a little bit more advanced in the economy back then. I can make this almost 7,000 caps with a legendary effect. That's kind of cool. Anyways, I'll chuck on a better receiver and I'll get a few more and I'll see where we usually shoot things. Well, as it turns out, the recoil is insane. This is the Death Wish receiver. No way I'm using this in third person with a current attire. I might just change that to overkill. Ah, much better. Okay, so here we are in the usual shooting gallery, and here's what this weapon looks like in first person. Honestly, I reckon the iron sights can be a little bit more glowing, so I can actually see them when I'm aiming at, I guess, similar colours of wall, I suppose. But here's the one with the scope. After I changed the receiver, the scope kind of, it vanished, but it's here in spirit. It's like a see-through scope because when you aim down sights in first person, zooms right in, and in third person, just as normal. A little bit of versatility, if not a little bit inconsistent. And here's the one with the hip-fire laser sight thing on the top. Looks kind of goofy. You can still aim down sights with it. You get a little bit of a picture of where you're aiming, but not the best. You'd rather be hip-firing this thing anyway because it's more accurate. You still get you don't get the movement penalties for aiming down sights. We'll start off with this one, and since that one's figured out kind of where we are, we'll start off by shooting him. I'm going to hammer down mouse button 1 just to show you how fast this thing can fire. At least when I've got a target to shoot at. Yeah, I'm not worried about aiming when I can fire another couple of shots. It's slow. Ironically, still probably faster than the 44 Magnum, so it's got that going for it, but it is very slow, which means it's going to be painfully bad in any crowd control situation, so we've got to pick our battles a little bit more carefully here than not. Luckily for me, I can one-shot these turrets though, because it's got the power behind it to do it, so that's helpful, but we kind of want to use this as a little bit more of a skill cannon. We've got to line our shots up to the noggin a little bit, make sure we actually hit those shots if we can.
Put your hands up.
Yeah, put your hands up. I'm going to use Pacify here just to get him to stop moving for a second, just so I can demonstrate the damage, because it's a perk that I rarely use, but it's always there.
Don't do anything stupid.
Playing on big boy very hard difficulty does penalize you quite a little bit for damage. The recoil doesn't make it super easy to hit things, especially not when it's the recoil of what I'm going to get here. This is just the overkill recoil. You know, with the scope zoomed in, it's like I get a blood nose every time I fire this thing. It's not very pleasant. Hate to be the one actually firing this thing. That's horribly disorienting. Let's use this one. This one's got the Death Wish receiver on it, so we're going to look straight up into the sky as soon as we fire this thing. Luckily for us, we've got a thing called VATS, which is the mortal enemy of all good shooting mechanics, because it eliminates your need to aim. It eliminates recoil. It's an all-round decent tool for cheesing the game very easily. But luckily, or unluckily for me, Tactical was privy to this. He figured out, well, people can just sidestep this weapon's recoil system by using that. I'm going to make them pay for it. And you do pay for it, because this takes up a lot of AP when you're actually shooting it as compared to a lot of the vanilla pistols in the game. So, you know, you're not gonna do great with this, like, as a super great with like a VATS build with it, but it's more usable this way at least. At least I don't have to deal with the crazy recoil. Yeah, just hip firing this thing seems like the best idea for a Death Wish thing because, well, when you aim down sights, you get the whole entire thing in your face while you're doing that, and you get the increased FOV, so you get a close-up of the roof as you're, or the ceiling, sorry, as you're firing it. So you're just using the superior hipfire accuracy granted by this particular attachment on the top of it. Feels like the best idea, might be the best way to run this thing. If you want to use it in VATS a little bit more, then a scope might be necessary just to increase your accuracy at range. There's also a bashing animation, which is a good idea if you've got the slightest amount of health left on your target, and the bash animation is pretty good. You just give him a big old sucker punch. Might be able to one-shot this guy with the sucker punch. Not quite. Halfway. Although being able to kill people in 2 punches is a scary kind of power that usually you wouldn't think people would wield. But it's a good way of, you know, I guess comboing your attacks. You punch them as between firing, and if you do it halfway through your reloading animation, you bash the ceiling out of frustration, but I guess your bash damage has splash damage, and it kills them as well. There's also a cord. The cord's going to nowhere. I'm not sure what that's all about. Maybe it's just kind of left over from something else. Maybe there's supposed to be a little battery there. Not really sure, but it's a powerful weapon. Suffers a little bit in crowd control, but if we zero in VATS, can be an extremely powerful option. Okay, so I think the true test for this weapon is to see whether it can actually beat this thing, you know, without me healing and all of that nonsense. So That's what we're doing right now. This is the one with iron sights, by the way. We get 3 shots in that. So we've got 0 criticals to make sure that guarantee hit is up first. But this is the kooky lasers sight thing. 4 hits in that. This one with the scope on it, in inverted commas, also 4. That's kind of backwards to what it usually is, but whatever. So what I'll do is I'll quickly creep up on this guy and see if we can't nail a massive sneak critical to start off. He might have already seen me, actually. Yeah, he did. We're not off to a great start here. What I might do is just keep on using this one because the Death Wish receiver is going to kill me. And if I can just get this guy in, that's a little bit. Okay, we've got a critical now, which means if we go into Nerd Rage, which we're going to get one-shotted anyway at this point, but we kind of need our AP to do some good work to him because we don't have the damage. We don't have the damage to deal with this guy. We're going to have to keep dancing around this nonsense to, throw his pathing off to make sure we actually do this. That might actually be to my detriment here a little bit if it's too slow. Luckily, it was fast enough there. Got another critical in the bag when we're ready to go. Might have busted his pathing enough for him to... Ah, there's Nerd Rage. I was wondering when you'd show up. Perfect timing too, because I've got a critical and a couple of shots ready to go. Okay. Might want to hold on to those AP for just a second longer. We'll switch to the Death Wish receiver one because we can nullify the effects of recoil in that, so might as well do that, eh? Switch back to this one. Back in real time now. Make sure he doesn't charge us. Didn't expect to be dancing around some fence to kill this ghoul, but this is kind of how it has to go because this thing just doesn't have the bite. Also, it can't penetrate through nothing. I'm actually hitting some collision boxes there, which is a real pain. There's a helpful bunch of mosquitoes around, though. I'm not going to say no to that. I don't know why he's not focusing on them. I guess he's only seeing me at the moment. Well, I am his biggest threat despite using a weapon that is pretty slow, to be honest. He might actually bother to deal with the mosquitoes rather than me, which is good because critical time. Come on, 4-leaf clover, give me something. Might be able to do it with this critical. Yes, he goes down. Not gonna lie, that took me several tries, and yeah. It's, ooh, nice. Yeah, my aim's finally warmed up here, I suppose. But yeah, the damage hasn't blown me away. I mean, the damage is good, but the DPS on this thing is just... It makes it very unusable at a super, late game thing. Especially if you are playing on very hard difficulty, but I tend not to care about that all that much because, honestly, it's Bethesda's fault for making very hard so lame. We want to get those legendaries, we have to sit through bullet tankiness to actually do it, but... Yeah, it's not really a contender for any of the most powerful weapons, but it does a new thing. It's like a new hand cannon in the game. It is self-loading. It's mag-fed, so it's a leg up over the Western Revolver or 44 Magnum from the vanilla game. So, it's got its place, but honestly, I can't see myself using this other than, making this review of it just to check it out because, yeah, I'm not really keen on it. But it is a cool weapon nonetheless with some cool history behind it too because Charles Bronson used this thing in a movie. Someone was playing as him. Charles Bronson may have used it in real life. I don't really know. But anyway, if you'd like to see this weapon in your game, check out the description. There'll be a link there. There's also an Xbox One port too. So if you're on that platform, you can grab this as well. Thank you very much for watching, guys.